How's it going, everyone? It's me, it's Jinsula. I hope you're having a good day, and welcome to today's Pokemon Go video. Alright, so today we're going to be doing a tier list for every single Ghost type Pokemon in Pokemon Go. And yeah, this is mainly because it is the Halloween season, and I really do think that this tier list may actually surprise you. There's a couple of Pokemon that are a lot higher on the tier list compared to before, and yeah, let's just get right into it. Alright, let's jump right into it. So, naturally, there's going to be a lot of Pokemon that are only going to be there to get candies to evolve them. Like, a lot of these Pokemon are only going to be useful once they are fully evolved. But, in general, I want to be as fair as possible to every Ghost type. I'm mainly going to be going off of their usefulness in the Go Battle League, as well as with raid battles, and every other aspect where it involves battling. But, a lot of Pokemon are obviously not going to be good for that. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot in the trash tier, but just do keep in mind that a lot of those Pokemon do evolve into some very powerful Pokemon. Alright, so with that said, let's get right into it. So, starting off, we got Gastly, and just like I said, this is going to be a trash tier Pokemon. Yeah, Gastly is not useful in any way. Obviously, it's something that you want to evolve into something more powerful, like Haunter, which is going to actually be a B tier Pokemon. And the reason why I have it in the B tier is because it does still see some play within the Go Battle League, especially in the Great League. So yeah, because of that, there is actually some usefulness to Haunter, so it's going to be in the B tier. Actually, I'm going to put it into the C tier because honestly, it's not necessarily going to be that good in the Great League, but yeah, it will still see some play, but not as much to its fully evolved form, which is of course going to be Gengar. This one I'm going to put in the A tier. Now, the reason for that is because with Gengar, it's going to be pretty good in the Go Battle League, but it's also going to be extremely good for raid battles. It's not necessarily a top Ghost type raid attacker, but it's going to be up there, and you should not discount it. But of course, it's also going to have a Mega Evolution, and that one's going to be an easy S tier. It's probably the top Ghost type raid attacker right now. I mean, yeah, it's just really strong. It is a bit of a glass cannon, so you will want to watch out, but if the raid boss is weak against Ghost types, then yeah, Mega Gengar is going to tear through that raid boss. Next up, we got Shuppet. This is obviously another trash tier. It's not good in any sense. You're just going to want to evolve it, and it evolves into Banette, which I'm going to put in the C tier. Banette is unfortunately not that good in any aspect of Pokemon Go. Like, you could use it as an alternative to another Ghost type, like if you're just starting out in the game, but in general, you're not going to find many uses for this Pokemon, even in some specialty cups within the Go Battle League. And then next up, we got Mega Banette, and this one's going to be an A tier. Yes, it is a very powerful Ghost type Pokemon, but it does fall short to Mega Gengar in terms of rate damage. So, unfortunately, the cases where you would use Mega Banette, it's going to be pretty slim compared to using a Mega Gengar. And getting candies and Mega Energy for Mega Gengar is a lot easier than it would be for Mega Banette. So that's something else you should keep in mind. Next up, we got Duskull. This one's another Pokemon in the trash tier, unfortunately. But it does evolve into Dusclops, which I'm actually going to put in the C tier. This Pokemon has done a lot of work in a lot of specialty cups. So yeah, it is naturally a very useful Pokemon in some cases. It's not going to be a good raid attacker, but it's still a decent Pokemon. Now on the flip side, we got Dusclops. No, Dusclops is that. What is this? Dusknoir. Dusknoir is unfortunately going to be a D tier. Now the reason why I say that is because it's not good enough to be a top Ghost type attacker, and it's not weak enough where it's going to be somewhat relevant in the Go Battle League, like weak enough in terms of its stats. So yeah, unfortunately, there's really no place for this Pokemon. So it's very surprising that even Dusclops will be more useful than Dusknoir. It's basically just there as a Pokedex entry. I could be wrong on that. If I am, make sure you say so in the comments below, but I've never used Dusknoir in just about anything in Pokemon Go. So yeah, that's a D tier Pokemon for me. Now, Drifloon, you would think that I would include it in the trash tier, but it is actually going to be a D tier. Now, why do I say that? Well, there is a little thing called the Little Cup, and this Pokemon is actually pretty decent in the Little Cup. It's not going to be top tier, but considering that there's a lot of Bronzors in that cup, this is a very good alternative to use. It's not going to be a trash tier, but at least it's going to be a D tier. Next up, we got Drifblim, which is of course the evolved form of Drifloon, and this one is going to be a B tier, and the reason for that is because of the Go Battle League. Once again, it's not going to be a good raid attacker, don't get me wrong, but it's going to be somewhat decent in the Go Battle League. It's actually pretty good in the Ultra League, which is pretty difficult as a league, so yeah, if you have yourself a good Drifloon, you might actually do well in the Go Battle League. And then next up, we got Misdreavus. This is another trash tier. It's somewhat decent in some of the specialty cups, like the Little Cup, but I really do not think it's going to be that good. It's a trash tier Pokemon, but Mismagius, that's a D tier Pokemon. It's somewhat good. I mean, it's lacking a lot of offensive power, and that's really what it comes down to. Like, you're not going to use this Pokemon in anything if you have yourself a Gengar or a Mega Gengar, you know, all those Pokemon. So yeah, it's unfortunately a D tier, and alongside it, I'm going to put Shedinja. It's not really that useful. Actually, I'm going to put it in the trash tier. It's, let's be real here. When are you going to use Shedinja? Like, it doesn't have any kind of stats, and it's not even allowed in the Go Battle League. So yeah, unfortunately, Shedinja is going to be in the trash tier. That's pretty much where it belongs. And then next we got Spiritomb. This Pokemon, now, I'm going to say it's going to be a D tier Pokemon. There might be some cases where you could use this Pokemon in the Go Battle League, but in general, it's just not built for anything. It's basically one of those Pokemon that's there as a Pokedex entry. And for some reason, the shiny form of this Pokemon is highly sought after, probably because of how rare it is. But yeah, this is a Pokemon that's going to be in the D tier, which is unfortunate because it is one of those Pokemon that you can only get once a year, and that is of course during Halloween. Next up, we got Froslass. Now, this one is a definite, actually, maybe not. Let's actually put this in the A tier. So, Froslass is one of those Pokemon that's a menace in the Great League. It's extremely powerful against a lot of the meta Pokemon, and it's definitely one you should consider trying out if you are very engaged in PvP. It's a really strong Pokemon that I really have a lot of trouble going up against, so yeah, that's definitely a Pokemon you should consider using, and it's well deserving of being in the A tier. Next up, we got Giratina Origin Form, or is this? Yeah, this is Altered Form, and this one's going to be a B tier. It is very powerful in the Ultra League, and in some cases, some players have made it work in the Master League, but in general, that's pretty much all you're going to use it for. Like, it's not going to be a good raid attacker. It could be decent, but it just lacks a lot of that offensive firepower, unfortunately, so it's just not necessarily going to be that good. On the flip side, there is Giratina Origin Form, and this one's actually going to be an S tier. If you have yourself a Giratina Origin Form that's 100% IVs and fully maxed out, you got yourself one of the top Ghost type raid attackers in the game. And on top of that, it does have the dual typing with Dragon, so it's definitely going to be very powerful in a lot of different situations. Like, you could use it as a Dragon type raid attacker as well, and on top of that, it's one of the strongest Pokemon in the Master League. This is definitely one of those Pokemon you need to invest into, so yeah, if they ever bring it back, which unfortunately it doesn't look like they will this year for Halloween, but if they ever do bring it back, you should definitely rate it because it is always considered one of the best Pokemon in the game. Next up, we got Yamask. This one's going to be a trash tier for obvious reasons, but it's actually pretty good once you evolve it, which is going to be in the A tier. Once again, this is a really strong Great League Pokemon, and it's one you should not ignore. It has definitely won me a couple of games after using it, and yeah, I do think it has a lot of uses. And then of course we got Galarian Yamask, another trash tier, but I think it's called Runigarius? I'm really bad with Pokemon names, but Runigarius is going to be a B tier. Actually, I'm actually going to put it in the A tier. I'm going to move Cofagrigus into the B tier. Cofagrigus. I don't know how to pronounce these names. I know there's a lot of people who go on my comments and give me a lot of crap for mispronouncing Pokemon names. I'm really bad with these ghost types, so I'm really sorry for that. But yeah, I actually want to switch these up because I think when it comes to the Great League, Runigarius is actually a lot more powerful than Cofagrigus, and it's a lot more relevant in the meta. So yeah, let's switch it up. We'll have this in the A tier, and we'll have this in the B tier. Next up, we have, I actually forgot what this is called. Frillish? Yeah, I don't know. Trash tier Pokemon, but when you evolve it, it's got a decent Great League Pokemon as its evolution. That one's going to be in the B tier, and it's definitely worth checking out if you can get yourself a good one for PvP. Alright, next up we got the female version. Once again, the pre-evolved form is in the trash, and then the evolved form is going to be C tier. It's kind of a slightly less powerful version of the male, unfortunately. I guess Niantic is misogynist, but yeah, the female version is slightly less powerful than the male version. It's slightly less useful. I've seen a lot of teams that actually use the female version, but in terms of the moveset and the stats, the male version of this Pokemon is actually a lot stronger for the Go Battle League. Next, let's move on to Litwick. This one's going to be a trash tier. We're gonna run out of space in the trash tier, I feel like. But yeah, it's one you will want to evolve. What it evolves into. Man, I'm so bad with these names. I'm actually blinking a lot. But this one, it's going to be in the D tier. I've actually seen it in the Go Battle League, especially in Specialty Cups. So yeah, there's going to be some cases where you're actually going to use it. So I'm going to slot it in the D tier because during those hedge cases, it might be good to actually have one. And then of course, Lantern. This one's going to be an A tier Pokemon because it is extremely powerful as a raid attacker. Regardless if you're using it as a ghost type or a fire type, it's going to do gangbuster numbers when it comes to raid damage, and that is something you should not ignore. The nice thing is that the shadow version of this Pokemon is soon going to be available in Pokemon Go, and that's going to be one of the top raid attackers by far. So yeah. Alright, next up we got another trash, but this one I'm gonna put in the D tier. Yeah, I've never really seen it used anywhere. Maybe as a gym defender, I guess. Never seen it in the Go Battle League, never seen it used in raids. Unfortunately, that makes it a D tier. Next up, we got Phantump. I've gotten a lot from my comment section on how I pronounce this Pokemon. For some reason, I've always known it as Phantump. But yeah, Phantump. It's because it's a stump. That makes total sense. So my apologies for constantly mispronouncing it. Phantump is going to be a trash tier Pokemon, but its evolved form, Trevenant. This is an infamously good Pokemon for the Go Battle League. This one's definitely going to be an A tier. It's fallen off quite a bit recently because of a lot of the meta changes and a lot of the move changes, but it's still really good. Like, it used to be the absolute best, like among the top 3, and now I would say it's probably like top 10. So it's still pretty good, I would say. And also, it's good for both the Great League and Ultra League, so depending on what league you're struggling in, maybe you can invest in a Trevenant, and it could do really well in either of those leagues. Alright, next up, we got Pumpkaboo. This one is unfortunately going to be a trash tier. We're running out of space down here. Might just start slotting them into the D tier and just say that both of these are trash. But Pumpkaboo, yeah, it's quite unique of a Pokemon, at least. Like, depending on the size of the Pokemon, it's actually going to be visually that size, which I think is unique. You know what? Because of that, I'm going to put it in the D tier. Yeah, why not? And the evolved form, let's put it up there for the same reasons. It's basically the same deal. Like, maybe you could use it in the Go Battle League, but it's basically a bad version of Trevenant. So, yeah, it's 2 D tier Pokemon. Next up, let's go to Hoopa. This is the not unbound version. I forget what the unbound, like the bound version is called. Confined. Yeah, Hoopa Confined. This one's going to be an A tier. Yeah, mainly because it's pretty good as a raid attacker. It's one of the mythicals that's actually pretty good. And in terms of PvP, it's a huge menace in a lot of specialty cups. And even in the Open Great League, I've actually seen Confined Hoopa. So yeah, let's call it an A tier Pokemon. Next up, we got Decidueye. Unfortunately, until it gets Frenzy Plant, it's not going to be a good Pokemon. That's going to be a D tier. But keep in mind, once it does get Frenzy Plant from Community Day, I would say it would probably be somewhere up here. As a raid attacker, it may not necessarily perform that well, but in terms of PvP, there might be some uses for it. But until that day happens, I'm going to put it in the D tier. Next up, we got I don't know this Pokemon's name. I'm going to put it in the C tier. Now, the reason why I'm putting it in the C tier is because this one is kind of a collector's item. It's technically a regional, so if you happen to have one of these in your collection, you actually have a rarity, and that's something that kind of bumps it up in the tier list. Alright, next up, we got the Sandygast Family, and yeah, both of these Pokemon are going to be in the trash. We're running out of space in the trash, oh no. Although I think the rest of the Pokemon are nowhere near the trash tier. So yeah, maybe these will be the last trash tier Pokemon. But yeah, when it comes to Sandygast, when it was first released, a lot of people caught them in order to get the Pokedex entries. And then they completely forgot about them. Like, these are some of the most forgettable Ghost-type Pokemon in Pokemon GO, which I think is really depressing. Next up, we got Lunala. I keep wanting to say Lunatone, but that's definitely not this Pokemon. This Pokemon, the Pokemon Sun and Moon Legendary. Oh my god, I'm so bad with these names. Let's put this in the B tier. Pretty decent raid attacker, I guess. Haven't really seen it used yet. I've mainly because maybe it's just because it's rare, but yeah, it's going to be a B tier Pokemon. I don't really see any significance with this Pokemon. I could be wrong. Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to be in the B tier. And alright, let's move on to Skeledirge. Now, this one is quickly becoming a fan favorite. And rightfully so, it's a really cool Pokemon, and for me, I'm going to put it in the B tier. Now, the reason why I'm putting it in the B tier is not only because it does have some potential for raid battles, but because of the Great League. It's actually pretty good. Like, there's a lot of uses for this Pokemon, and it's quickly becoming a Pokemon that a lot of players are using, which kind of surprises me because it's still not ranked that high, and it still doesn't have Blast Burn, but eventually it will. But as of right now, before it gets Blast Burn, it's pretty good. Like, a lot of people are actually using it. It does get hard countered by a lot of Pokemon, like this one right here, but like Jellicent will completely destroy it. But, you know, if you can make it work in your Go Battle League team, then by all means, you should try it out. It's actually pretty good. Next up, we got Greavard, which is the one of the newest. Should I put it in the trash tier? You know what, I'll put it in the D tier because it's a dog. Like, dog Pokemon are always going to be cool. Let's put the Evolve form also in the D tier. Yeah, not necessarily trash because they're dogs, but not necessarily any good. Actually, this one, Houndstone? I don't know their names. This one has the potential to be good in PvP. I'll probably make a breakdown video of it eventually, but as of right now, it's going to be in the D tier, and that's going to be my opinion on it until I get more info on that Pokemon. But yeah, Alolan Marowak is next. This one's going to be in the C tier. It's pretty good for the Go Battle League. I would say it's on par with Haunter. A lot of people have used it and die by it. Like, they say it's their best Pokemon, and I don't agree with that. There's a lot of Pokemon in the Go Battle League meta that completely counter it, but yeah, it still is pretty decent. Like, Shadow Bone is a very powerful move, and it's very much unmatched by any other Ghost-type move, and you can only get it on this Pokemon, I believe. So, yeah, that's something that, you know, you do need to keep in mind. Alright, next up we got Gimmighoul, and this one I'm gonna put in the D tier. Yeah, it's cool. Like, they introduced it in a very unique way with the Gimmighoul coins, and I feel like with this Pokemon, the big draw is, of course, its Evolve form, which I'm actually going to put in the A tier. Now, the reason why I put it in the A tier is because this Pokemon is extremely powerful as a raid attacker, believe it or not. And yeah, some people have used it in the Great League and Ultra League as well. It's pretty good. I cannot deny it. Like, it's very strong. And if you happen to have yourself a 100% IV, you should definitely max it out. Alright, next, finally, let's move on to Sableye and Mega Sableye. This is a Pokemon that I've recently been using in the Great League, and I've found that it's incredible. Like, it's probably one of the most underrated Pokemon in Pokemon GO. It's one of the rare Pokemon that if you were to max it out with the correct IVs, you will actually hit right under the 1500 limit. So yeah, it's a very powerful Pokemon. It could definitely net you a lot of wins. For me, it's an easy A tier. And then finally, let's move on to Mega Sableye. And this one, I'm actually going to put this in the A tier as well. So it's basically one of the best raid attackers in the game for both Ghost and Dark. And it's definitely one you should not ignore. Like, you're actually going to do really well in raid battles. Unfortunately, it does fall short compared to Mega Gengar. That's just how strong Mega Gengar is, but yeah, I really think it's still a lot. It's a step above Mega Banette, and you know, because of that, you know, yeah, you put it in the A tier. It just makes sense. Anyway, there you have it. This was my tier list for all of the ghost types that are currently available in Pokemon Go. Again, I'm really sorry that I don't know the names of all of these Pokemon. They're there in the top of my head. I just can't really say them on command. Like, that's just a common problem with Pokemon, you know, like being a fan of Pokemon for so many years, like you just kind of lose track of every single Pokemon. But yeah, I feel like this is somewhat accurate. There could be cases made for some of these Pokemon to be up in the A tier. Maybe some of these Pokemon should be in the B tier. Maybe some of these Pokemon should be in B or A. I don't know. But at least with the S tier, I feel like these are the two that really matter. And maybe even regular Gengar could be considered an S tier once its Shadow form comes out. And that's going to be really soon, because with the next Team Go Rocket Takeover, with the next Team Go Rocket Takeover event, we're going to be getting both Shadow Ghastly and Shadow Litwick. So both of those Pokemon are definitely going to see an increase in their rankings once those Shadow forms comes out. But yeah, there you have it. This was my tier list for every single ghost type that currently exists in Pokemon Go. Now, of course, this tier list is subject to change as more ghost types get released. And of course, I'm pretty sure a bunch of you completely disagree with how I made this tier list. If you did, make sure you say in the comments down below what you would change and why you would do so. And let's have a great discussion. And thank you so much for making it to this point in the video. If you ended up enjoying it, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if it's your first time here. And don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a quick shout out to all of the members of my Patreon family. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support my channel in any way, big or small, then make sure you go and check out the links in the description below. For all of my patrons, they get a permanent spot on my in-game friends list. So if you want to interact with me in some way within Pokemon Go, like with remote raids or the friendship system, then make sure you go and check out my Patreon. Also, if you want to support my channel non-monetarily, you could always do so by following me on social media. My handle is @Jinsula, and I'm on the following platforms. Alright, and with that said, that's going to be it. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.